When you're thinking and feeling so deeply about how to care for, how to help other, you also need to ask the question, how do I feel? Do I feel good? Is this too much? Am I giving too much? Is this throwing me in a mental, emotional state of disturbance and volatility? You have to think that way. Okay? All right. Let's get into the physical features and the mental features of the Kapha dosha. The physical and mental features of the Kapha dosha have to do with the qualities of the Kapha dosha, which are adopted from the water and earth. Now, I have listed those qualities. Now, let's see if you can relate to the qualities that you see in your body. Smooth and dense hair, or at least smoother and denser than others. There might be some imbalance of vata or pitta that may be making them a little bit drier, but generally tend to be smooth and dense. Smooth skin, soft skin, has a lot of moisture on it, usually doesn't tend to get very easily dry unless you're aggravated, or unless it's specifically in the fall time and winter time when it's very drying time of the year. Then skin and nails are actually moist and really well formed. They don't have dry and cracking in them. But then extremities tend to be cool, right? Stools are usually bulky, large quantity, oily quantity, maybe once a day, maybe twice a day. You don't generally tend to be constipated unless you're not digesting things well. So if you eat food and it sits heavy, then food is not getting broken down because kapha is too much, pitta or the metabolic system is too damp, and so there's not the adequate stomach enzymes and pancreatic enzymes to separate the water from the fiber. And so there's not enough fiber to make that nice bulky stool and for you to move. And so stool comes slow and sluggish because it is sticky and mushy. Okay? So you have to look at, is there a metabolic weakness that is making me tend to be more constipated? Because a balanced kapha with a decent agony won't have that issue. Okay? Then it comes down to sleep. Generally, very good sleeper, very deep sleeper, unless there's emotional disturbance. You're bothered by something, you're worried about someone, or you're feeling very insecure about something or hurt by someone. That is the thing that will tend to affect the kapha. Kaphas are generally tending towards the grief spectrum and the depression spectrum because they always feel like I'm giving and not getting enough. I'm empty and I'm not feeling enough care. Okay? Then let's look at the mental emotional features of the kapha dosha. Memory for the kapha is generally very strong. They almost remember everything and they can be very detailed in their remembering, or they can just remember, oh yeah, that happened and all of these things, and they remember it mostly through feeling. I felt like that and therefore I remember. The stronger the feeling they have about the memory, the more detailed they remember. Okay? It's different from pitta, who will remember the details, the stronger stimulation they have of their senses. Oh, those colors, those smells, those sensations, versus the kapha has to do much more with the feeling of the memory that is making that memory very strong. Mental activity generally tend to be slow and methodical. This is very frustrating for the modern corporate culture of go, and this is very frictional because what the modern corporate culture could take from you is the methodical and the high quality, thoughtful quality of your work output. Instead, you're being rushed and left to do things very inefficiently, and therefore you feel insecure about your work. So that can be one aspect that happens for the kapha dosha. But in your personal life, you can be very well organized, you can be so patient, you can be very methodical, decorate your home very beautifully based on what feels good to you, which is actually good feeling for your whole self. Okay? Lastly, the behavioral tendencies. So generally, like I said, easygoing. You like to have routines and flow, and you have a gentle mind, compassionate mind, empathic mind. We already talked about taking on too much of people's troubles and not tending to yourself. So That's where the emotional imbalance often comes. And but there can also be like emotional stagnation as a result of it. When you feel depleted emotionally all the time, or you take an advantage of all the time, it takes away motivation, desire, confidence. And Kafas who are really feeling, don't feel cared for, nourished, and comforted, and they feel like people love and respect them the way they need to, often get very lonely and depressed, often feel not understood, not seen, not cared for. And this can make their mind slow, sluggish, and lethargic, make them unhappy. Because guess what? Not enough dopamine, not enough love means not enough serotonin, not enough motivation, not enough stimulation, not enough excitability, not enough zest for life. And so the covers tend towards grief and depression because they're so depleted emotionally. Okay? Now, this doesn't always happen in relationship. It can happen because you've experienced a lot of loss. This can happen because you've experienced a lot of lack of love and abandonment. You've experienced trauma from someone close to you who you really trusted. All of these can also give you a sense of not being loved and cared for and abandoned. And then that old trauma keeps repeating in your personal day-to-day life through different relationship and different circumstances. And so this is something that can be addressed more clinically. But just knowing that about you, hopefully you feel more love, compassion, and care for yourself, and we can talk about effective ways of supporting you. Okay, loving, empathic, sensitive, tendency to get attached to people because you feel very close and comfortable with them. All of these go with the Kapha dosha. And I hope I've repeated that enough times to grasp that